and welcome to story time. Well, Stinky and I were pretending to be aeroplanes because I'm so excited for Stinky. Stinky is going on a great big plane and he's going to France. Can you believe that? He's going to France and then he's heading off to London. And Stinky, you really do like London, don't you? Yes, it's a very exciting place. Lots of things to see there. And what's that? You want to go on a red double-decker bus? Yes, how exciting. Well, I wish I could be with you, but unfortunately I have to stay here, but you'll be all right because you'll be with Uncle Cheddar and Uncle Cheddar will take care of you, so you're going to have lots of fun, won't you? Yes. Well, my dear ones, speaking of London, today's book is called Mr. Chicken Lands on London. Look at that. Mr. Chicken Lands on London. And of course, today's story time cake, which I must mention, is a wonderful cake here with, thank you Stinky dear, with Mr. Chicken on top with a lovely cup of tea and a biscuit, of course, because the Brits are known for drinking lots of tea. Oh, Stinky, you've got icing on your nose. You can't wait. As I was saying, they are known for drinking tea like the Australians. We do love a nice hot cuppa, I have to say. Well, Stinky, I suppose you should get comfy and try and have a rest because we've got so much to do. We've got lots of things to pack in your special travelling suitcase. And I don't know whether you're going to be able to sleep tonight because you normally get so excited, don't you? Yes, you do. But anyway, if you can try and have a rest and have a listen to the story, and then perhaps later on we can have some nice cake with some nice hot tea, can't we? Yes, good boy. Will you get nice and comfy? Down there, have a little nap if you want to, and we'll crack on, my dear ones. Well, Mr. Chicken Lands on London. This does look like a good one, I have to say. I've heard about this book and it's the first time I've had a read. I had a quick read before story time and it does seem like a good one, I have to say. And here we go, my little poppers. Mr. Chicken couldn't wait another minute. So he finished his breakfast, collected his camera and flew to London. London was his favourite city in all the world. Well, there's Mr. Chicken there, up in the sky with a rather lovely parachute on. That must be the way he travels, by parachute. An unusual way to travel, but that's the way he likes to do it. After drifting over Regent Street, he floated down through the clouds past the House of Parliament before landing ever so gently right in the River Thames. Luckily, his camera was waterproof and the Savoy Hotel, where he always stayed, was just around the corner. "Good morning," said Mr. Chicken. "I have a reservation." "Certainly, sir," said Maurice. The man at the desk welcomed back. "Your favourite room is ready." Well, they seem to know Mr. Chicken because I would say that he's been there before, I would say, because it is his favourite place. He did say that early on at the beginning of the book. Where in London, Mr. Chicken stayed in the Riverview Deluxe room, where he could look at London while enjoying breakfast in bed. How marvellous! It was still early, so he ordered a full English breakfast, then planned his day and made a list. Mr. Chicken loved looking up facts and figures about his favourite city. He never got sick of learning new things. Later outside, a lost teary tourist asked for directions. Mr. Chicken was happy to help, for it made him feel like a real Londoner. A real Londoner. He's happy to help. He certainly is. Very happy to be there on holiday, I'd say. Yes, very, very happy. First on the list was a visit to a special friend. Whenever he was in town, Mr. Chicken called on Her Majesty the Queen. Wow, that is special, Her Majesty. Of course, he always rang first so that Her Majesty had time to do some extra baking. Well, I never knew that. The Queen is a bit of a whiz in the kitchen. She likes to get her hands dirty and do some baking. How marvellous. "Oh, Mr. Chicken, how lovely to hear from you," the Queen said. "Do pop in for some morning tea." And so he did. At Buckingham Palace, Mr. Chicken was on his best behaviour. He took extra care not to break the furniture. After morning tea, the Queen suggested stepping onto the balcony. "The view is absolutely marvellous," Mr. as you well know. I'd love to, Your Majesty, said her gracious guest. And there she is there with Mr. Chicken, and they're sitting on the balcony. Look at that. What a wonderful view it must be from up there. It was very nice indeed. However, Mr. Chicken had to keep an eye on the time. He had a lot to do before lunch. And there's the palace there, and Mr. Chicken, of course, with the Queen. Look at that, a wonderful big castle there. How wonderful. Very, very exciting. Lots of flags there, giving a wave like the Queen does there. Very exciting. After the royal visit, Mr. Chicken checked his list in St. James's Park. He'd seen the changing of the guard before, so he decided to climb up St. Paul's Cathedral. Then he explored the Tower of London before crossing the Tower Bridge. By now, Mr. Chicken was getting behind in his schedule, as tourists kept wanting him to take their photo. Even though Mr. Chicken was a VIP, he liked to blend in. He queued at the bus stops and moved about a double-decker bus, just as ordinary Londoners do. If he was in a hurry though, he drove the bus himself. Well, he drove the bus. Mr. Chicken can do almost anything, and he can drive buses as well. How marvellous. Of course, if Mr. Chicken was in a real hurry, he caught the underground. He enjoyed riding on the escalators, especially if they took him to a favourite spot. For instance, Trafalgar Square, where Mr. Chicken sometimes spied on Lord Nelson standing atop of his column. And there he is there, checking out Lord Nelson. Wonderful, look at that. Right up the very top there, I do believe, just there, where my finger is. He's having a wonderful time, Mr. Chicken, so busy, so many things to do. Today, as there was room for two, and Lord Nelson didn't mind sharing, Mr. Chicken joined him to take in the view. He didn't stay long, as his tummy told him it was nearly time for lunch. And there he is there, standing up the top with Lord Nelson, but his tummy is beginning to rumble. He's starting to feel very, very hungry. And he is a rather big chicken, I have to say. Very, very large chicken. Though he did manage to squeeze in a visit to the National Gallery. "No touching, please, sir," said a voice from behind. "Pardon me," said Mr. Chicken. With all that sightseeing, Mr. Chicken had to keep up his strength. Luckily, his good manners and VIP pass got him into a very smart place for lunch. "More tea, sir?" asked Walter the waiter. "Make it cake, please," answered the VIP. And there's Mr. Chicken there in a very posh place there. I do believe there's a grand piano there. A very, very special place for lunch. Having a wonderful time. Tea and cake. Lovely. Straight after lunch, he was back on a bus. Mr. Chicken wanted to see everything. He even played I Spy on the London Eye. And there's Mr. Chicken there on the London Eye. Look at that. Right way up the top there. Seeing all the sights of London. Look at that. Simply wonderful. Although it does look like a very tight sort of fit, I have to say. He looks rather squashed there on the London Eye. In fact, Mr. Chicken didn't stop until he found a place to perch at Piccadilly Circus. As usual, Mr. Chicken had overdone his London sightseeing, and by late afternoon he'd become much too excited. A short rest was needed back at the Savoy so he could freshen up. In no time at all, Mr. Chicken looked as good as ever and was ready for dinner. Well, he doesn't look like he's ready for dinner to me. His eyes are sticking out of his head and they look very, very red there. I think he needs to have a good night's sleep and maybe do some more sightseeing in the morning. He doesn't look very well to me. But anyway, he's a trooper. He carries on. "Vegetables, sir?" "Yes, please," answered Mr. Chicken. "Lots." A meal down in the Crypt Cafe of St. Martin in the Fields was a must for Mr. Chicken. He enjoyed it so much he was nearly late for the opera. In the middle of the first act, Mr. Chicken remembered he had to be somewhere else. By 9:15 exactly. Well, there he is there. He doesn't look very impressed to me. He's got one eye closed, looking at the opera, in the opera theatre. Look at that. sitting with all the other people there enjoying a bit of theatre, or dozing off, having a nap perhaps. Sometimes you can do that. If you're at the opera, have a rest, have a sleep. He hurried down Whitehall to the clock tower near Parliament Square as Big Ben struck 9. At 9:10, Gerard the guard checked Mr. Chicken's VIP pass. "Yes, it's you, all right, sir," he said, and waved him in. Up climbed Mr. Chicken. Tick, tick, tick went the giant clock. At exactly 9:15, Mr. Chicken felt as if he was right inside the beating heart of London. And there he is there, he's climbed up Big Ben, that great big clock. He must be very good at climbing, to be able to climb all the way up there. And he's inside looking at all the mechanics of the clock, all the bits and pieces that make the clock work. And that night at exactly 9:15, Mr. Chicken was, later, back at the hotel asleep. Sleep was impossible. Not that it mattered very much for Mr. Chicken, because he didn't want to waste a minute. So there he is now, back at the hotel, tucked up in bed, trying to sleep, but he has one eye open there. He's just too excited and he just can't fall asleep. Perhaps some warm milk might help. I don't know if chickens drink warm milk. So as there was a full moon, he got up and went for a walk. At midnight, Mr. Chicken listened to Big Ben strike 12. At last, he felt he had London all to himself. In the morning, it was time to leave, but not before a full English breakfast. As always, Mr. Chicken said goodbye to London from Waterloo Bridge, and as usual, he shed a tear. Well, he has to go home, my dear poppets. His holiday has come to an end, and he's feeling quite sad. But that's all right, because he can always come back for another holiday another time. Not a big one, of course, for Mr. Chicken knew he would soon be back. Yes, he would soon be back. And there's Mr. Chicken in a hot air balloon going back home, wherever it is he comes from. And that was called Mr. Chicken Lands on London. I did like that, I have to say, and very fitting with today. Because, my dear poppers, as you know, Stinky is going there very, very soon, and he's quite excited. He's been fidgeting down there, playing with my socks. He can't keep still. Stinky, my dear boy. Oh, did you listen to that story at all? What's that? You listened to a little bit. What's that? You're just far too excited. Yes, I bet you are. Now, Stinky, I think you should pack some toys for the plane, dear, and possibly some crayons and some pencils so you can maybe do some drawing on the plane. What's that? Can you take your iPod? Yes, I suppose you can, but you just have to make sure it's in aeroplane mode, all right? Yes, you mustn't forget to do that. Well, my dear poppets, we have come to the end of story time once again. I hope you enjoyed that book about Mr. Chicken, and perhaps you could pretend to be Mr. Chicken and go on an aeroplane and pretend to perhaps fly all around the world or go to one of your favourite holiday destinations. Or perhaps you could make a very smart storytime cake with Mr. Chicken on top. And as always, my dear ones, take care and thank you for watching. And until next time, bye!